Hello, everybody. Chief Meteorologist Tim Buckley with you from WFMY in Greensboro, welcoming our viewers in the Triad area, but also in the Charlotte area this evening. Stepping in for Brad just for a couple of minutes as we get the show ready for you. For today, across the Carolinas, it didn't really matter where you were. There was some rainfall. There was some sunshine. It's been kind of a twofer type of weather pattern, and that's kind of where we are stuck over the next couple of days. What I'm expecting is that for Thursday and for Friday, both of these, we're still going to have some on-again, off-again shower chances. So we're going to break down that muggy and occasionally wet weather pattern for you. Also, taking a look toward the tropics, we're still in the early phases in figuring out what Tropical Storm Erin will ultimately do as we get into next week. So we'll start to unravel that solution. Let's get right to it, though, talking about the radar across the Carolinas over the last couple of hours. This is kind of where we've been over the afternoon time. But if we work it back all the way toward the morning time frame, that's when we really had some heavy rain pushing across parts of the area. And I expect that where we go overnight tonight is pretty similar. We're going to see some of this rain that's been kind of working its way in batches through parts of Georgia. That's going to be moving a little bit closer to us. So you see this rainy action over here near Asheville and the western North Carolina mountains. Some of that will start to spark some new showers and thunderstorms that could impact you as we go into overnight tonight and early tomorrow morning. So this is kind of what we're expecting. Now, temperatures have been really warm and muggy through the afternoon. In Charlotte, getting up to 90 degrees yet again. The Triad area mostly in the upper 80s as well. Even with morning cloud cover, we were able to warm up a great deal. And that just goes to show you how strong the sunshine is during the month of August. It really doesn't take all that much clearing to get you warm. And we talk about the humidity. I mean, the humidity has been brutal across the area today. Those dew points have really been that air that you can wear type of phenomenon that we talk about. And this time in the summertime, it's usually this way. We got a nice break in that action last week. That's not the case anymore. Now we are back with the super, super muggy air, and that's where we're going to stay, honestly, over the next several afternoons. So you see it plainly, dew points in the mid-70s, not just for us, but up and down the coast. I expect that humidity to continue for a while. Here's the dew point trend for the Carolinas over the next several days. We're just going to keep this around. So it's going to be with us for a while longer, and plan on that. And when there's more water in the air, well, a lot of times there's more water falling from the sky too. Here's where we stand right now as far as our futurecast plan going into the rest of the evening. Mostly it should be dry for Charlotte, for Greensboro, Boone, Raleigh, wherever as you go through the next couple of hours. But here's where you start to see some changes, right? This is around 3 to 4 a.m. at the start of this. I'll move it a little bit more slowly. What we're noticing by around midnight to 1 a.m., you see how these downpours kind of start to pop up scattered around the area. Some of them putting down some really heavy rainfall. So this is in that early morning time frame. Now, if you're on the north side of Charlotte or anywhere within the Triad area, that's where some heavy rain is going to be possible through 4 and 5 a.m. and kind of winding down closer to daybreak. So a major chance of rain for Thursday is really while a lot of us are going to be sleeping from around that midnight through 7 a.m. time frame, the pre-dawn hours. Getting after that, we look to be a little bit drier. Now, there is an interesting feature in South Carolina that might spin up some showers and storms, but for most of us, the daytime hours on Thursday for the morning and the midday look to be fairly dry. Now, the flip side of that is once you get to the late afternoon, that's when we're going to start to see some of this. Take a look over here as we start to see some of these showers popping up in the western foothills and moving our way. That's when we're going to start to see some of those rolling into our area. So the best rain chances for Thursday, 2 time frames before sunrise and then late afternoon into the evening. So let's watch that. Now, as far as rain potential after that, Friday looks to be a little bit of a drier day with a lower rain chance. Saturday does too. So to put it to you another way, this graphic worked up for the Triad area, but it works all the same no matter where you are in the Carolinas. The best chance for rain will be coming up on Thursday. And then looking ahead to Friday, just a lower chance of a couple isolated showers here or there. By Sunday, we're really in the clear. And at that point, the rain chance is just not really there for a lot of us. So the main chance for rain, similar to the last couple of days, is going to be on your Thursday. Let's talk a little bit about the tropics now. Tropical storm Erin has undergone a little bit of intensification for today. Wind speed increased to right around 50 miles per hour, and that storm will continue to be moving to the west across the Atlantic Ocean over the next several days. The latest track from the Hurricane Center as of 5 o'clock this evening hasn't really changed all that much. We're not noticing all that much really. We're kind of just seeing that this is pushing off to the west from time to time. So as we see this storm kind of gaining in speed, gaining in intensity, we're going to start to watch more carefully. By the weekend, it's expected to be a Category 2 hurricane on Saturday, north of the Caribbean islands. Sunday and Monday, a Category 3 hurricane north of the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico. That's something we're really going to want to watch for into early next week. Now, all indications are that it still will make a turn. What I like to use is some computer models. We call them ensembles. We call them spaghetti models, whatever you'd like to call them. Every one of these lines here are showing a computer model opinion on where Erin may go. So if we put them all on the map here, you can kind of see them all at once. Let's take a look and see what they're showing. By the middle of next week, almost all of them have Erin, the center of Erin, offshore. Now keep in mind, if the storm were to pass somewhere close like this, there would be impacts to the Carolina coastline because hurricanes are not a dot on the map. They're hundreds of miles wide in some cases. And that could still be something that ends up happening if we have a westward trend. But as of right now, the majority of these do keep Erin offshore. So we'll just watch and wait pretty carefully. There are a couple of models you might see kind of plastered around social media showing some differences here and there. But what I would caution you is just to say we're early in the game right now and pay attention more so to the Hurricane Center cone, which only goes out 5 days for a reason. The reason it only goes out 5 days is because beyond that, well, it's just not all that accurate. So once you get out of that long range window, 7-10 days away, we have to just be best guess instead of a definitive answer at that point. I'll leave you with a 7-day forecast here as we get ready to do the rest of our show. We're looking at the mid to upper 80s for the next couple of days. The best rain chance will be for us on Thursday, and then going ahead into Friday and Saturday, the rain chance will be a little bit lower. Looking ahead to Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, we're not looking at big chances for rain there, and instead it looks to be a little bit drier.
All right, welcome in, Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich here at WCNC. You missed our local forecast. We had a little technical difficulty, so thanks to Tim Buckley up at Greensboro, our sister station WFMY. You know, he joins me every night. He kind of took over the whole show there locally, did a great job covering the Carolinas. I'll just add before Tim joins us, and we're going to have another guest coming on shortly from our station over in Knoxville. We, too, had some sunshine today for the first time in a long time. It's been a crazy start to August here in the Charlotte area. Initially, the first week was the second coolest start on record. We're kind of going down that list because in the last 2 days, we've had our first above normal days in the last 14 days. That was yesterday and today. So it has been a while since we've seen both the sun and these really warm temperatures. And boy, today we got up to 90 degrees. It was super muggy. So the summer, August Carolina weather came back with a vengeance. Had some crazy overnight storms. Those were during the wee hours of the morning. My dog certainly heard them early this morning and was jumping all over the place on the bed. We had some loud lightning and thunder there. We could see another round of that tonight, so just a heads up for everybody in the Charlotte area and the southern Piedmont. I do expect another round of storms tonight, probably after 1 a.m. until the wee hours of the morning. So I think Tim has gotten his technical issues all straightened out. Tim Buckley joins us now. Tim, thank you so much for taking over that first part of the show. We had a complete computer meltdown over here.
Well, it's funny because after you did, I had some gremlins to kind of battle and work out as well. So we're no stranger to that. Anybody deals with it, but we're here and we're ready to talk about what's going on. We're the coolest August up here still, by the way, so far. We're still at number one.
Yeah,
so.
I think what skewed our numbers, and we're still in the top 5, but that first day of the month we were 93. Yesterday we were 87 with the morning low of like 75, and then today it was 90. So we've had 3 days to kind of balance some of that really cool weather. But I don't know about you guys, but for us, this has been incredibly wet. We've gone from that drought. You guys had all the rain in July. We had none. And now I just looked today, some of our areas, especially around Charlotte South into the upstate of South Carolina, somewhere in the orders of 6 to 8 inches above normal already in August. And in some areas, we've seen more rain in the first 2 weeks of August than we have the entire summer. So it has been a pretty big flip here in the Charlotte area. And I know everybody was super excited to see the sunshine today because I think that's the biggest complaint I've gotten, Tim. I don't think people were too mad about the cool weather. We needed the rain, but the fact that we hadn't seen the sun in a week was kind of starting to kind of grain on people a little bit, and they wanted to see that sunshine.
We've said that a lot this summer, that we have about a 2 to 3 day cloudy tolerance, maybe even a day and a half. Once
people
you get
mad
beyond
quick,
that,
don't they?
it is not something we're built for in the Carolinas, particularly in the summer. So give us the sunshine. We need some more of it. Then we'll complain about the heat instead.
Yeah. I did want to talk a little bit about Aaron with you. I watched you and was listening to you talk about it. I feel like we've been watching Aaron now forever, but there's been some pretty good consistency. I know there's a couple outliers there. I love your super ensemble graphic there with all the GFS and Euro ensembles. And it's kind of interesting. The Euro and the GFS are kind of diverging a little bit here, but I mean, let's be honest, they're all pretty consistent between the Carolinas and Bermuda. But I think this weekend's going to be kind of key, Tim, because that's about the time we expect the churn to happen. And where that happens is going to be really crucial to direct or indirect impacts on the coast, because regardless of where it turns, at the very least, we're going to see some pretty good swells. And if it gets close enough, we might have some coastal flooding, beach erosion, because this is going to push a lot of water.
Yeah, I think it's always good just to respect the time frame. We've been tracking hurricanes a long time. A week out, there's still going to be some sort of element of adjustment or surprise. It could be in one direction closer. It could be in another direction farther away. But kind of the clearest point right now is that it's going to be a strong hurricane north of the Caribbean islands. And then from there, we just kind of have to watch and be alert. No reason to panic or freak, even if you're at the coast. But be aware and keep on checking up on the forecast in case it shifts a little bit. But like you said, Brad, at the minimum, I would expect some swells and rip currents and the like. We get coastal flooding on new moons and high tides. There will be some problems, I'm sure. It's just a question of minor or more. And right now, just monitoring is probably fine.
Yeah, and the good thing is we still have time to watch it. So if you're on the coast and you want to start, if you didn't do the preparations at the beginning of season, which is always really important, kind of have that plan and that kit put together just in case, you still have some time to do that. So I think this is always a good thing to do is just be prepared and have a plan. It doesn't mean you have to evacuate or do anything crazy, but put that plan in place right now, just in case. Because if it isn't Aaron, Tim, it's going to be another storm at some point here in the next couple of months, because we are just now entering the peak of the season.
Totally. It's never wasted effort, and like we said, I was saying this to Brittany the other day, to me, hurricane season in the Carolinas really begins around mid-August.
Yep.
That's really when we want to start to pay attention, and you could keep that going through early October. That's really when the heart of the season is now through the next 6 weeks. So be ready, be on alert, and check the weather every day. Only once, that's fine, but just keep checking back.
Yeah. I do want to remind everybody we are going to be answering the questions at the end of the show. We're going to try to make this a pretty regular segment. And if we don't get to your question today, trust me, we'll get to it at some point. But we've got that number on the screen. It's 704-329-3600. You could text it to there. You can put it in the comments on the stream. We'll try to gather them anyway. We've got some emails even that come in, Tim. And so we've gotten some good questions here and there. And we're going to try to make that a regular part of our show, that every day maybe we'll try to answer a question or two, or at least at the end of the week we'll answer a question, because we get some really good questions, Tim. And even us as meteorologists, there's just things we don't think about or even consider sometimes, and it's always nice to get that layman's question about, hey, what's up with that? And it does kind of spur some great discussion with us.
Absolutely. Sometimes we even have to look up the answer, and we're not afraid to do that.
No, that's okay, because if you don't know, that's what research is for. So
we educate.
Yes, absolutely. Nothing wrong with that at all. But today I did want to bring in, we had some flooding over in eastern Tennessee today, Tim. And this is something we are both familiar with, and unfortunately I think most of the country has been familiar with. Eastern Tennessee had some massive flooding. We saw a whole bunch around Chattanooga into eastern Tennessee. We even saw some up against the North Carolina border today. When I woke up this morning, there were several flood warnings for areas in eastern Tennessee. And this has been the summer of flooding. I think everybody's kind of talked about it, and it's just not the observational bias. There has been a lot of flooding this summer. And so we want to bring in meteorologists from our sister station over in Knoxville, Tennessee. WBIR, Casey Knoll, is going to join us via Zoom. And Tim, we have had this issue. They had it today. And I don't know if this is going to be a trend we see into the fall, but it is crazy, the extreme rainfall events we have seen this summer.
Yeah, and if you have to boil it down to a simple answer, I guess the best one is just that we've had more water in the air than usual. We would call it precipitable water, but you can call it Gulf moisture, whatever you like. It's just been super humid, and there hasn't been a lot of steering flow, so we've had these stalled out actions. I mean, this, I guess, was Chattanooga about last night. You're seeing a lot of these visuals. I just pulled this up on our MAX system. We'll get the details from Cassie here in a second, but it seems like about 5 to 6 inches of rain around there. I think they even recorded about 6 inches of rain at the airport. So it was a mess, and not just there. So to me, it's fascinating that, like you said, so many parts of the country have been touched by this. You can name Milwaukee from earlier in the weekend. New York City has seen this. We've seen this in Greensboro. You've seen it in Charlotte. We had it in Raleigh this week. It is a bit ridiculous just how often it's been happening.
Yeah, the Milwaukee stuff really struck me because when I first saw the flooding going on up there, I'm like, would they get like 6 or 7 inches? They might have set a state record rainfall event up there north of Milwaukee. And so that was a huge event for them. And then we saw in eastern Tennessee, and unfortunately, this has been an issue that, we're worried about going into the fall season when we get into tropical season. I was just in the mountains yesterday. That's why I wasn't here talking to folks in Avery County, Watauga County about the 1-year anniversary of Helene. And one of the things that struck me talking to a lot of the engineers and some of the transportation people for the school system was they're seeing a lot of flooding with less rain in some of these creeks and streams up there because of how the hydrology has changed. And people may not realize this, there's still a lot of low water crossing bridges that are temporary. They have not built the high water crossing yet. So they're dealing with flooding almost every time they get a half an inch or an inch of rain out in the mountains.
And that's scary. And right now, we're not that concerned about Erin bringing rainfall our way. But I am concerned anytime we do have a tropical system of any kind come our way this year. It's going to be stressful for a lot of people. And a lot of that is warranted with the preconditions. If you're already going to be soaked, that's not what you like to see.
Yeah. So joining us now, and she's joining us via Zoom, is Casey Null from our sister station. Casey, thanks for joining us. Talk a little bit about the flooding you guys have seen in eastern Tennessee in the last 24 hours. I know some of it was outside of your viewing area, but you guys kind of cover most of eastern Tennessee.
Yeah, and that video that you actually were showing at the beginning of this, that was down in Chattanooga on I-24. That was the interstate that had the water up to the windows of the cars right there. The road was closed overnight because once the water receded, it took a little while for the officials to go out and retrieve all of those vehicles and get them out of the way. So Chattanooga at the airport officially recorded 6.42 inches of rain yesterday. I know. That all happened in less than 12 hours, and it broke the daily rainfall record. In fact, it more than tripled it. It broke the monthly rainfall record for the month of August, and it actually was the second highest single day rainfall total in Chattanooga.
Wow. Have you guys seen other flood events this summer? I know Tim and I were chatting here talking about that. We've had a couple between our two areas. Have you guys seen flooding events like this summer? I know it's been kind of the summer of flooding.
It really has, and kind of like what Tim was talking about, precipitable water, Gulf moisture. Basically, when it rains, it just rains so hard, and our beautiful hilly geography here makes a mess. And so we haven't actually seen that much of it in Knoxville proper.
Yeah.
But up on the plateau and in the mountains, we've had multiple flood events in those areas.
Yeah. What has your summer been like as far as temperature-wise? You know, we started with crazy hot weather, then we've had this crazy cool August. How have you guys been on the other side of the mountains compared to us here in North Carolina?
Well, we don't get quite as much of that cold air damming like y'all do. Sometimes we kind of miss out on that a little bit. So we actually were okay with our temperatures until mid-June. And the last 2 weeks of June, we were in the 90s for the final 10 days of the month. And we stayed in the 90s for the majority of July, which brought our average highs are in the upper 80s. So we ended up with the second warmest July on record. And when we're talking about rainfall, the rain was on the plateau and in the mountains, and it actually missed the airport in the valley. So interestingly enough, we actually have over a 3-inch deficit since June 1st in the valley, and we have moderate drought conditions. But after the rain we had the last couple of days, I think we're probably going to erase that pretty quickly. But yeah, it's a very hot summer.
Yeah, it's hot and humid is definitely, I think, been the story, and that's led to the flooding. Tim, I think you had a question?
Yeah, hey, thanks for joining us. It's pretty amazing to me just the way that we've gone about our summer, how small distances can have a big, big impact. You know, where Brad is, I'm just about 90 minutes away. We had a super wet summer going and they were in a drought. Have you seen it similar in Tennessee where just a small distance has made a big change in terms of what kind of summer it's been for people?
Yeah, absolutely. Our plateau counties, 30 to 45 minutes off to our northwest, they were the ones that received those daily showers and storms in the month of July. Meanwhile, the valley, because of those light steering winds that you were talking about, the storms didn't really get into the valley that often, and they were very, very sparse when they did. So that's why we have that big rainfall deficit at the airport, and which is the official climate site, if it doesn't rain in that bucket, it doesn't go down in the books. And the rest of our area, like I said, we have that moderate drought that's starting to pick up. July is, by the average, I find this very interesting, our wettest month of the year here in East Tennessee. But then August is, by the average, is our third driest. So it's really important that we get those daily showers and storms in July because we dry out a lot as we go from August and especially in September and October into fall.
Interesting how that can work out. Every climate is just a little bit different. And it's always fascinating to me being on this side of the mountains, how your weather can be quite a bit different from us. You mentioned the cold air damming. You can expand that to a lot of other things. It makes a difference which side of the Alps you're on quite often.
Yeah, we'll get a lot of snow and y'all will be like, where is it? I know Charlotte's running like a multi-year snow drought at this point.
Yeah, we had our first snow in 2 years this past winter. So it wasn't a lot, but it was like, you know how snow is in the South. It's like you get any at all. It's amazing. But you go 2 years without seeing a flake, it has been crazy. So, I was actually happy to see it because I don't like snow droughts. I love snow. I don't want 6 months of winter, but I love a good snowstorm, and we just haven't had a lot. Speaking of the hurricane season, we're talking a lot about Aaron. Because obviously last year Helene was a huge part of the story last year in both your area and our areas. How do you guys approach hurricane season in Eastern Tennessee? Do you think things have changed and that people watch these storms a lot closer post Helene now?
Absolutely. Absolutely. People are much more concerned about the tropics now than they were prior to Helene. I mean, we have a lot of viewers that have interests over in the Carolinas and down along the northern Gulf Coast. So, I mean, folks pay attention to the tropics, but especially after last year, kind of like what you were mentioning about different areas having different impacts than they did pre-Helene when it comes to even just a heavy rain event. One of our counties, for example, Cocke County, is the one that the Pigeon River flows into from North Carolina down into Newport. And they'll have flooding now when they only get 2 inches of rain, which in the past would never have been a problem for them. So like you said, you know, the floodwaters from Helene have reshaped our rivers, kind of reshaped our hillsides and just how the water flows and interacts with the land. And, you know, those impacts are kind of still being learned as we're going along here. So daily rain is different for us. And I know that if we get a tropical system up here, the impacts, I would think, might be more than what they would have been prior to Helene coming through the region.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of unknowns. I think that's the thing that is kind of frightening because the hydrology of so much of this has changed. And I think even the Weather Service is struggling with how they're going to issue flood advisories and warnings, not knowing how these creeks and river basins are going to behave. Yeah, so I think that's something we'll have to watch going and see. I hope, I'm knocking on every piece of wood I can that we do not have a system this fall because I don't know if the mental state of many people in the southern Appalachians can deal with any tropical system heading our way. But we have seen the flooding, so that's been part of it as well. Tim, any follow-ups? We're almost out of time. We got 30 seconds. This always goes way too quick. Anything you want to add before we wrap up tonight?
Well, I just thank you for joining us. I'm always interested to see what the weather's like all across the Southeast. You're always welcome here anytime if you want to visit us here in the Carolinas.
Well, I'll let you know. I'll be right on the other side of the mountains.
Yeah. Well, when you guys get snow and we don't, we will definitely call you up so we can see it.
Oh, absolutely. We've had 2 8 to 10 inch snowfall events in the last 2 years.
Oh, don't say that. I want to get
just to make you jealous. Just letting you know.
All right, guys. Thanks again for joining us tonight. We'll see you again tomorrow. Stay tuned. More news coverage coming up here on WCNC Plus.